This meeting is being recorded. I didn't know that voice happened yet. That was weird. That's kind of spooky. Okay. Hey, everybody. So I've got a small group with me today, but again, this is recorded, and like every single month, this recording will go up on the Institute du Fromage YouTube page. And if you don't want to be in the recording, you can stop your video. But if you are on video, remember your video will be recorded for others to see. Just throwing that out there. But if you want to opt out, now's your time. Okay. So I know we've gone through a lot of material, guys, and I thank you so much for every month coming on, because I'm not necessarily telling you the answers, but again, my goal is to lead you towards your guides where you can find the answers and find everything you need for the test. But this is the best practice guide for cheesemakers. I've mentioned this several times throughout my trainings, and again, it is so important. If you're just now getting caught up on training or just now really getting into studying, I know a lot of us can drag our feet, then hit this. If there's one thing that you want to study, it's going to be this thing here. So luckily, I'm going to be able to speed up through the pages here. So I'm not going to read you the acknowledgments and everybody that helped make it. So I know you're going to get dizzy on the screen for just 1 second while I get to the right page. All righty, here we go. So I am on page 1 as I have it in my printout book that I have next to me. And if you see me looking over, I'm looking at actually the study guide I used and actually highlighted. So this is going to be some great information. So number 1, if you are to think about things to study and what to know, got it right here. The pasteurized milk ordinance. Absolutely highlight that in your book. You're going to need to know that. Other than that, we're going to keep going. So these definitions, hopefully you can see what I have highlighted right here on my screen. Hopefully that's highlighting for you. But the definitions of milk. This, you will get asked about this, of course, being that we work in cheese. Our definition of milk is that milk comes from a lactating mammal. That comes from their mammary glands. We are not talking about nut juices or anything like that. But you could get tricked. There are going to be two separate. If you are on board, let me hit a mute with you. Okay. But know these 2 definitions. So milk is the lacteal secretion practically free of colostrum obtained by the complete milking of 1 or more healthy cows, goats, sheep, water buffalo, and other hooved animals. Know that that is the PMO definition. Other than that, you're going to go down to the Code of Federal Regulations. So you're looking at 2 separate definitions here, but need to know them both. You will get asked those. Okay, continuing on down to the bottom of page 1. I've got this very bottom paragraph. When milk leaves the healthy udder of an animal, it is relatively free of bacteria. Some contamination occurs from the udder, milking environment, and equipment. That is a question. Highlight that and know that bacteria, again, bacteria is more going to come from the surrounding area of the animal. So if that animal is walking through muddy pastures or laying down, it's going to be the mud or the feces that animal could be laying in or brushing up against that gets on the teat that is going to give you your contamination. Okay, but that first page, you've got 3 questions already off that. Next up, we're going to page 2, the design of farm buildings. I would absolutely read this whole packet, guys. I'm not going to say don't read this packet. Do read it, but I don't remember a lot of questions being about the design of the farm buildings. It is good to know, and I think if there's anything here that is extremely important is what I'm highlighting down here, which is the bacteria and the pathogens, and to know that how do you prevent that you know you're going to have dedicated footwear. So read this section, and there may be one question coming out of it, but the whole point of this is the design of the farm building so that it flows so that you can be sanitary while making cheese and actually milking your cows. Okay, so we're going to continue on. Do read it. Again, it's good information, but not a terrible ton of that is going to be on the test. But animal health, right here, guys, 1.2 animal health is huge. I would go ahead and literally highlight the whole piece of this. But animals in poor health can produce milk that contains human pathogens such as Salmonella. That first sentence, that's a question. Then you keep going through this entire paragraph, and this is really important. But I definitely have the presence of foodborne pathogens in milk is due to direct contact with contaminated sources from the dairy environment and to the secretion from the udder of an infected animal. Hopefully you can see where I've highlighted just that. Absolutely. That is a question on your test. And then we're going to keep going. Hopefully, if I'm going too fast, again, raise your hand or shoot me a chat and say slow down. But this is all good information. Milking animals. Okay, so that's a good paragraph. I want to move on down again, read the whole thing. But now we're moving to page 4. And I'm going to highlight here somatic cell count. You need to know this. Absolutely. Somatic cell count, this is important because that has to do with the animal's health. And yeah, this has to do with the animal health. Got to know that. And here, as far as this as well, this graph, permitted somatic cell counts, make a note of all of this. Know all of these. What is permitted per animal? They're probably not going to ask you each individual one, but know all of them because you will get asked about at least one animal. More often than not, it would be cow because cow's milk is more abundant, but they could ask you any one of those. And here we go. And even down from the maximum acceptable number, here we go for as far as EU. So we can compare, which kind of means the European Union has stricter standards than the US. That's really the only thing they're pointing out with that one. And now coming back, I tell you what, the somatic cell count, this entire paragraph, super important. The big thing that I have in here, though, is the human pathogens, including Listeria, may also cause Mastitis and Campylobacter in species. So that is a good paragraph again, because this is an issue that has to do with the animals and their health. All right, are you coming in new? Hello, hello, welcome everybody. Make sure you stay on mute for me unless you have a question. Now we're moving on to page 5. We're on page 5, best practice guide for cheesemakers. And we're talking about hazards now. Anytime you're reading through this packet, of course, the hazards and controls, these are good things to really focus on. But I've got here change in milk composition right here. Oh my goodness. I'm giving y'all too much information. That paragraph is a question. They're more than likely going to ask you something about that, about change in the milk composition due to the increased number of somatic cells. That is a big one. Okay, moving down under controls. So here is what I got the most important information out of here. Is institute a mastitis. So mastitis, of course, I don't know if we've gotten that definition yet, but that is absolutely something you want to know. Mastitis is an infection of the udder, of the animal's udder. And mastitis, you cannot, well, you can, an animal should be milked, but you cannot sell the milk that comes from an animal with mastitis. They have to be given antibiotics and basically pull from the herd. One confusing thing about antibiotics in milk in animals is, of course, we don't want milk with antibiotics in it. But if you do not give an animal antibiotics when they're sick, that animal is going to die. So of course you want to protect that animal. So what they do is they give that animal the antibiotics, but they pull that animal, separate from the herd, isolate in a way, and that animal has to be milked as again is producing milk, but all that milk has to go away. And once that animal is tested to no longer have mastitis and all the antibiotics have gone through its system, only then can that animal be put back in the herd and can that milk go into being sold or used for cheese. That's definitely something huge to remember. I know like every year they're going to ask a question. Which question? I don't know, but you will need to know mastitis. Okay, we're going to keep going now. Down to page 6, rocking and rolling, my friends. And I'm going to say this several times. Read this entire booklet, okay? But concentrate heavily on what I'm pointing out. The bedding. This is for reducing pathogens. But let me make sure I can get this highlighted at this screen for you. Bedding sources that are clean, dry, and comfortable will minimize pathogen growth. That is a question. Coming back even also with rubber-filled mattresses twice yearly. I'm going to highlight that one as well. And you'll see once this world opens back up, and hopefully we can get more tours of dairy farms, you'll get to see this. You know, it does make a difference once you can go to the farm and kind of see what's happening. But the whole point here is, yeah, you can have cows raised in a barn or staying in the barn, but those barns have to be clean, and where they're laying down has to be clean because that is a potential source of pathogens. And under here, we're going to keep going. So hazards. Yeah, anytime you see any of these pathogens, know about it. All righty. And under the controls, again, all of it's important, but I found this last one of utmost importance. Keep milking areas of the animals clean and dry, especially the teats, udders, flanks, hindquarters, abdomens, and tails. Okay, we're going to keep going. Page 7 is next, where we're going to be talking about the milking procedures. Again, read this whole thing. There's a lot of good stuff in here, but I'm going to highlight here for you what I think is going to be the most important. Look at there. All righty. And pre-dipping. So this goes into talking about how do we keep the barn clean when we're milking and what can happen if you don't keep that clean. But pre-dipping is the most effective in the control of environmental pathogens. And that's what you see that picture doing there. And the pre-dipping is basically when they're rubbing a solution onto the teat of the animal before they milk it so that it stops any bacteria that could be on the teat going into the milking cup or on the hands of the milker. Okay, continuing on. Know the processes here of washing. You got 1, 2, 3. This is, I know it sounds, it's a little technical in there, but that is absolutely going to be a question. And again, versus paper towels. So I would go ahead and just, I know I didn't mark this entire section for you immediately, but you know, single serve paper towels can be used. Know about those. And we're going to keep going. All righty. And it goes into wearing gloves and keeping clean, of course. But here, the overriding goal of all milking procedures is to attach milking units to clean, dry teats. That's the whole goal of everything we're trying to say. So that, of course, could be a question. Under the hazards, I found this information the most helpful. And again, I'm kind of repeating myself here. So, you know, if you had a mastitic stick or a dirty teats or the milking or dirty milking environment, of course, that's going to be a hazard. All right, and then going under controls. And I found this information here about using a strip, cup strip. This was really here. So also perform the California mastitis test. You're probably not going to get asked about that. Like there's a lot of acronyms here, guys, I know. But somatic cell count would probably be the most thing to remember out of this chapter moving forward. But if you want to learn more about it, of course, go through there. I don't recall anything specific about the California mastitis test, but it doesn't mean they couldn't ask it. Now, as far as a control, this is something that we do need to know as well. When we're talking about rejecting milk unfit for human consumption, this includes mastitic milk. Again, mastitic milk is milk from a teat that has mastitis, that is infected. So you cannot sell that or drink it. You will get sick. Milk contaminated with antibiotics and milk showing any abnormality. Colostrum or milk containing colostrum is unfit for cheese making and must be rejected. So colostrum is going to be the first couple of milkings that a mother gives after the calf is born. That's going to have the most nutrients and the most bacteria in there to help line that baby's gut, to help it grow. So that the first couple of milkings are always reserved for the baby cows. So we don't drink that. Okay. And of course, you will get asked about colostrum as well. So highlight that word and just know it in general. All right, we're going on to page 9. So many good things. Let's see, cleanliness and maintenance of milking equipment. Of course, we got to keep it clean. But I've got this section here as far as the first part of the paragraph under 1.5. Definitely know that. Read through that, and we're going to keep rolling. On to page 10. Here we go in controls. So all this again is important, but under controls, I see food grade, the term food grade. Food grade means the material can come from a direct contact with the food during harvesting, processing, and packing of food. Okay. All of this, the controls is good to know, but that's a lot of information, so we're going to keep pushing through. The next 2 pages are really references. And again, if you have time, go through these references, read these articles, because all these are extensions of where this information came from. But I'm going to move along now to page, I believe we're on 13, page 12, excuse me. Here we are, page 12. This is huge. I'm going to just say this entire page, OMG. I've got so much highlighted on here, you might as well know every bit of it. This is all big time, especially if we're looking at mesophilic. So I'm gonna break this down a little bit. I know that's a lot of, it's all important, but there's a lot of information that goes into here. So refrigeration, so even mesophilic cultures right here grow at temperatures absolutely know that. You will get asked, there will be a question as far as mesophilic versus thermophilic. I've got that one highlighted. And of course, psychotrophic right there. Excuse me, mesophilic or psychotrophic bacteria. You got mesophilic cultures, you got psychotrophic bacteria. Know the difference between those. Okay. Perfect. Now, chilling and storing fresh milk, continuing there on page 12 for you. The pasteurized milk ordinance. That definition right there, the pasteurized milk ordinance. PMO, you will get asked about this, states that grade A milk must be cooled to a temperature of 45 degrees less than with or less within 2 hours of milking. That's a great question for you guys to get asked on your test. Moving on down to the next page. And I would know all this too. They're going to ask you about milk. Grade B milk. And I'm going to highlight the bottom of this paragraph. So only grade A milk is regulated under federal milk marketing orders. Grade B milk, also referred to as manufacturing grade milk, does not meet grade A standards and can only be used in cheese, butter, and non-fat dry milk. More than 99% of all milk produced nationally is grade A. So that's that could be 2 questions asked within that one little paragraph right there. Excellent. And we're just going to keep rocking and rolling, teams. The can cooling method, they go over this, definitely. A lot of that when freezing milk. Let's see here if that's still on here. Of course, we try not to freeze milk when at all possible, but I would definitely learn about that. Okay, general. The controls here. I'm going to highlight this whole section for you. And this tells you when to get the temperatures down to. All righty. I'm going to skip down. So you got bulk tank, milk cans and bags. There could be a question in there, but this is just a lot of information to kind of needle through. I would go more into these controls where immediately cool milk in cans. And again, I've repeated that twice. As far as within 2 hours after milking, immediately cool milk in cans to 45 degrees or lower within 2 hours. Let's definitely know that. And then milk bags. Hit that up as well. Okay. We're going to keep going. And I'm going to highlight frozen milk. I know we've talked about freezing. Maybe one question about freezing milk. I wouldn't anticipate any more than that. Okay, we're going to keep rocking and rolling now. Records to maintain, and now 2.2. All the records are generally going to be the same, which is good. But now we're going down to 2.2, purchase of fresh and frozen raw milk. Hopefully everybody knows the 60-day rule. You will get asked about how old does a cheese need to be sold as a raw milk in the United States. Of course, that's 60 days. But here we're not talking about milk. Here we go. So just highlighting that, the purchase of raw milk. And I like these little addendums down here. And you probably will get, you may get asked one question out of this section. So we're going to keep going. So I can get some more information to you. Records to maintain. The kicker for the records to maintain is, I would remember that it's 3 years. More than anything else, as far as milk records, what to maintain, it's more about how long should they keep them. 1, 2, 3 years. All righty. And now we're into section 2.3. The PMO dictates that state and local regulatory agencies are responsible for the enforcement of sanitation requirements on dairy farms, milk hauling, receiving, and transfer stations, and in processing plants. So that just means your local regulatory systems. That's what they check on. And now we're moving on up, but I have this little highlighted as well. So you're going to see that, let's see, so the bottom of page 16 here, just know that foaming of the milk should be avoided as much as possible. Okay, we're going to keep going. And again, read this, and it, like, definitely read it. It will help you. But this is the section I got here at the bottom here at page 17. The milk tank truck hauler is any person who transports raw or pasteurized milk or milk products to or from a milk plant, receiving station, or transfer station. Any transportation of a direct farm pickup requires the milk tank truck driver to have responsibility for accompanying official samples. So this is kind of like your last line of defense before your milk actually gets to the cheese making or processing plant. Is they're the ones that they check to make sure there's no antibiotics in there, that their temperatures are controlled. So that's a very important piece. You will get asked at least one question about that. Okay, we're going to continue on. Of course, Farmstead has to acquire, I'm looking up here at the beginning of this page. But under the controls, what I would remember is under the controls here, this section down here. As far as milk, complete antibiotic testing prior to unloading any shipment of milk. So if you're a cheesemaker, that milk has to be tested before you get it. That's what that's saying, and obtain and monitor the quality test results of every milk shipment. That's every single one, and reject any liquid milk delivery, raw or pasteurized, which, and this is where, like, this absolutely is written almost in the form of a question down here. So it has abnormal smell or appearance, is delivered above 45 degrees, is delivered in a visually soiled vessel, is delivered in a vehicle that is not dedicated to milk or not for foodstuffs only, and has not been adequately protected. So all of those, like, that looks like almost a multiple choice question already written right there. So I would definitely get to know that. And of course, it's still going on, which, I mean, follow all of that. All righty. And then the same, like, I would go through here, rejects, like anything where he says about rejecting milk, know why you would reject any of it. Reject any frozen milk. Absolutely. And once you go over these, you'll see that it's pretty cut and dry as to why, you know. And the raw milk receiving area shall be separate from the processing area. And those are your highlights. Again, read it all, but those are the big ones. Records to maintain. Let's see. I would get to know all of the records right here. Beautiful. And we're going to keep going. This is all good information, but I didn't find, I mean, we're going to get to HACCP here. If we go to the next page with PMO, we're going to start seeing hazard analysis, critical control points and systems. Anytime in this book that you're reading and you see hazard analysis, critical control points, or just critical control points, read it. There's a lot of questions that can come out of that, and you will get at least 5 questions about HACCP, you know, about having a good HACCP plan. Okay, we're going to keep moving to chapter 3. Heat treatments of milk. Here we go. I think we already see the pasteurized milk ordinance again, and we'll get the definition of pasteurization. Know that. All righty, and now you also need to know there's different styles of pasteurization and the temperatures. Memorize those. You will get asked about, because pasteurization is a big deal in our industry. You will get asked about all of them. Bat or batch method, high temperature, short time. So make a graph. I suggest making some note cards with all of that on there. Okay. And thermalization. Thermalization is a sub-pasteurization heat treatment. This is a kicker, undefined by current United States regulation. It is the process of heating milk to a temperature in the range of 135 to 155 for at least 15 seconds. So this is, you do have thermalized cheeses out there. I anticipate one question about thermalization at least. And I think the main thing to remember, besides like you need to know the temperature range of that, but also is that it's undefined. It's not necessarily a law. It doesn't fit in raw or pasteurized. It's an oddball out there. And I would just go ahead and just hit all the rest of this as well, just to make sure you have a good understanding of thermalization. Excellent. We'll keep going. Here we go. I like this paragraph here. Pasteurization is designed to kill pathogenic microorganisms. There are indigenous enzymes in milk that will survive pasteurization, whether performed under low temperature, long time, high temperature, short time. Misunderstood concept is that survival of healthy bacteria and enzyme differs substantially. So that's a misunderstood concept. All right, now batch pasteurization. Here you go. I kind of like this almost this entire end of the paragraph. Has a lot of great information in there. Pasteurization, though the kicker is pasteurization is at least 99.999 effective against the most heat resistant pathogens and kills vegetative cells, including vegetative cells of spore formers. All right. Now we're going to keep going down to vat. So again, I'm going to focus, I'm not going to highlight everything here, but again, anytime you see this high temperature, short time, low temperature, long time, know those for sure. Okay. All right, still going through. All good stuff to know, but I'm going to keep rocking and rolling on to 3.2 here at the bottom of page 24. All right, the two heat, naturally occurring heat stable enzymes in milk. Get that highlighted as well for you. Know about those. As far as phosphatase testing, you'll probably get one question about that. Now we're going down to raw milk from different species of animals contains different levels of alkaline phosphatase. So know this, again, you'll probably get one question maybe about this one. Not as a big deal, but we're going to keep going down under our hazards. And this is one, pasteurized milk. This is a good one. Really, I would know everything in that section. Okay, let's keep going through. There's good information back there, but I think we've hit up most of the questions that are going to be asked in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and go to 3.3. the maintenance and cleaning of pasteurizers. And here we go. So I'm going to start you out with, let's skip on down here, probably to the middle of page, this page here. And yeah, all of this is much more helpful. This section here, I know we've got a little bit, it leads into it at the beginning of it, but the primary reason to maintain and clean pasteurizers is to eliminate soil. That sounds like a question to me, to eliminate soil. But read through all that highlighted stuff. It talks about butter, fat, proteins, denatured proteins, mineral salt, hot milk films, and milk stone. Each one of those, like they're probably going to ask you 1 to 2 questions maybe from this section, but it could be from about any one of these. I remember being asked, I think about milk stone, just to give you a heads up. So all this area here, and that's on page 28 for you. Really good information on that. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead now to chapter 4. Again, please do read it all. But those are just the highlights. Now we're into chapter 4, microbial sampling and testing. And I've got, the definition of psychotrophic bacteria. Boom. Hopefully you're going along and highlighting with me as we move along. I would know about that. Psychotrophic, like, because you're going to get, it'll lead into 2 to 3 questions hitting about that. So I would read all of that. All of this is good information, especially other species found in milk. Excellent. All right, I'm going to keep going to 4.1. Okay, so this is where you got to know the difference. Illnesses associated with dairy products. Know about these versus the illnesses that can be caused by an infectious organism. All righty. Pathogens. Anytime you're talking about illnesses or pathogens, you will get asked several questions about all of this information. This is just highly important. Okay, and of course, moving through here, all these fun things. Each of these are important. I'm not going to highlight every one of them, but you have to know every one of them. I'm going to highlight the big dogs. Salmonella. You absolutely need to know what salmonella is, where you get it from, and also what symptoms does it provide, does it give you. E. coli you want to know about, Campylobacter, of course. Know about all of these. These are just, I'm not highlighting them, but I'm telling you these, like, know it anytime you see these pathogens, know what they are. I'm under. Hold on 1 second. There's something specific I want to pull out of here for you. There we go. That's what I wanted to highlight. An infected human. There we go. But yeah, like, the thing is, know about all of those. Now I'm going to hit 4.1.2. You got to know what the FDA stands for. I know that may sound elementary to some of you, but you know, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, they almost run our lives. So you want to know about them and know what they regulate and what they check on. So anything about you see with the FDA, go ahead and read up on that. We're going to keep rocking and rolling. And I've highlighted all these bullet points. As soon as I can get my mouse working right. Okay. I've got a lot going into talking about on section 4.2 raw milk considerations. Boom, this whole paragraph. Excellent. Know all about that. Now more acronyms are coming. Oh my goodness. Let me make sure I can find the right area here. Tests. Standard plate count. Know about that. And coliforms are a group of organisms used as indicators of sanitary conditions. That's a good one to know. And I've got the bottom of this, be aware. Excellent. Raw milk quality indicator organisms. I've got this section here. Go ahead and just highlight that whole area of 4.2.2. The test, know about those, but we want to get into our area here, 4.2.3 raw milk cheese. Yeah, this is like highlight this entire section. But you got another acronym to know. So many acronyms. I definitely make notes on how to remember all this. But FSMA or FSMA, as some people would say, Food Safety Modernization Act. And you see, you got HACCP under there. You got GMPs. Know all about those. And here, I've got this one highlighted and starred in my book. The big four organisms that are generally of concern of cheese made from raw milk. This is absolutely going to be on your test right here. Excellent. Environmental monitoring. Here we go. So the environment, the purpose of an environmental monitoring program is to establish an effective system to detect the presence of Listeria species in all areas of cheese processing plant. Absolutely. And let's keep moving on. Now the zones. Okay, so what we're going to get to here, as far as the zones of areas, you do need to know these. I'm not going to highlight the entire section because seriously, from right now we're on page. So make sure I give you the right information. Page 38 here, team. The zones basically of cleanliness is what they're talking about as far as their environment of inside the shop, inside the cheese making facilities. Know the difference. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and Zone 4. So know all about those. I didn't highlight it here for you, but please, you will get asked at least one question from that entire bank. And the fact to know that there are 4 zones. Okay, we're going to keep going. And you see more zones here. All of this. A lot of it's going to be repeating, but again, yeah. All of this. And you'll probably get one question from all of that. Moving on down to product testing. And one thing to remember though in zone, I've got this one, unfortunately finding pathogens in this zone means it's too late. The product is already contaminated and may lead to product recalls. All righty, now going down into product testing in 4.4. So we're just keeping going here. There's a lot of information. Let's see here. So hiding in here, it's highly possible to have pathogen bacteria in raw milk at low numbers and then find the cheese making process contributes to their numbers. And then there we go. Now we're going to sampling. And of course, this is it could be a trick question for you. The cheese itself may not always be a source of contamination. Talking about all the ingredients that go into that. All righty. And then we're going to keep rocking and rolling to 4.2. This is all good information under 4.2. I think you all should read all of that. Be familiar with those pathogens. Perfect. So know all of that at the end. And now we're moving on to chapter 5. See, there's so much. And I do want to repeat myself. If you find yourself at a lag for studying and confused by all the materials that are out there, focus on this booklet. This is a major source of most of the information you will get asked. All right, chapter 5, moving on. So classification of cheese. Throw out whatever ways you think cheese is classified, follow whatever is in this guide from the ACS, because this is what they're going to want you to remember. Cheeses can be defined and classified in many different ways, of course. Examples, classifications. So this is a question in and of itself. What are some examples of how you could classify cheese? Include milk type, texture, fat content, ripening method, or country of origin. Excellent. All right, regulatory definitions. Read all the way through here. All of that is important, regulatory information. And of course, here you go. Fat and dry matter. Here's going to be some of your math that's going to come out of here. So absolutely know about that. And of course, sorry, I'm jumping around on here, but Artisan, Farmstead, and specialty definitions. Absolutely, like know these inside and out. Artisan will be one question, Farmstead will be one question, and specialty will be one question. So if you read this, you've got 3 questions answered on your test. All right, so ACS judging and competition categories. It's a little bit different than my old book here. So read all through this, because again, this is what they're going to want to judge on and what they want you to be. If you're certified from ACS, you need to understand how they judge and the way they categorize. So read all of this. Milk source, yes. Raw versus pasteurized. Again, you know this current regulation. This is absolutely one question on your test. Of course, the cheese has to be 60 days or older. We know that. Coagulation. Oh, acid coagulated or lactic. Definitely know this. continue to know, yeah, these are all just, now we're hitting into some nitty gritty. So I would just pay particular attention when you're hitting into this chapter, chapter 5, rennet coagulated. Yes, you got to know what rennet is. You should be at that level. Also to know the different types of rennet. Know that there's animal rennet, microbial rennet, and rennet from vegetables. So vegetable rennet. Know all of that. Method of ripening. Affinage. You need to know that that term is means ripening or maturing cheeses. And of course, one who performs affinage is an affineur. So I'm just like, all of this, I'm not kidding, all of this is important. The thing is, if they don't ask a question on it, they'll use a definition in another question, and you'll have to know the definition, if you see what I mean. Excellent. So yeah, surface mold ripened. So this is all new. So team, this is new information that is going to be on your test because they changed a lot of this in the old book. So within just the 3 years ago that I took the test, this is all new information. So I'm assuming that every bit of this is going to be on your test. I would anticipate one question each from all of these. Excellent. Safety wedge, we're gonna keep going. And there we go. So it's a lot of information. So chapter 5, of course, just know that it's a big chapter, a lot of important information, as is well chapter 6 here with cheese making. Okay. So I'm going to go through, it looks like I've got just a couple of minutes left today, but I'm going to get through this entire chapter before I stop. If you need to leave, go ahead and jump off whenever you're ready. But I'm going to finish up this lesson with chapter 6, and I will make sure we have another call to finish up this book. So don't worry, we'll make sure we get this completely finished. All righty. So we're going to go through here, cheese making. Any definitions that you see in here absolutely are going to be important. And I like this. The definition of cheese. Absolutely all of that. Of course. Finish it up here. Excellent. And we get to milk. So get with all of this. Okay. All right. Yeah, read all through this. Milk source. We covered a lot of this, in the milk and then chapter 4 already. So make sure you read it all, though, as far as the source. Mm-hmm. I would go through. Yeah, here we're talking about milk safety. So again, some of this may be repetitive. In the other chapter, we get to know that. And anywhere, of course, here, for instance, so again, it's repeating high temperature, so HTST. You'll see that again. You got to know your pasteurizations, of course. And it's repeating. So a lot of this comes from the other chapter. So just repeating, legal pasteurization breaks down the phosphatase in milk. You need to know that. Hazards and controls. Read through that. Starter cultures. Boom. Know about your starter cultures and where you can get them. Know that there are things called culture houses where cultures can be purchased. Definitely know all of that. And here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Mesophilic versus thermophilic bacteria. You're going to get asked a couple of questions about those in particular. So know that section there on page 54 for you. And of course, know about the storage. I would absolutely not skip any piece of this if you are reading it to study. Don't skip any of this. Read over all of it. A lot of this we've already covered. And here, this is bacteriophage. The possibility of bacteriophage, a virus that attacks specific strains of bacteria, is greater in bulk starter cultures than direct sets. But bacteriophage, know that term because it'll affect, it could be into upwards to 2 to 3 questions easily. Know all of the, just read, make sure you're getting all of this stuff. Very important. All right, so we're getting back to direct acidification. Definitely want to hit that first paragraph there. And there's what you know in acid and pH. Like the way that I can remember it, I have to use my hands. Once, you know, you like, so alkaline means your acidity level and your pH are even. Once you add acid, your pH will drop. So they work in coordinate with each other. So if your acid goes up, your pH generally is going to go down. So read about that, know that. Now we're hitting back up on 2.3. Yeah, this is just, I want to highlight everything under 6.2.3. Ooh, every bit of that is important. Oh, I didn't hit my highlight. Excellent. So I see this chapter 6 as being highly important as well. You got a COA, Certificate of Analysis. As you're going through, hopefully as I'm reading through here, hitting the highlights, you're seeing the red flags and the bells that really go off of the things that you should be studying. So anytime you see an acronym, highlight it and learn it. All righty, curd formation. Know about that. This is all good stuff to know. Here you go, your types of rennet. Boom. 100% know that. You get to have one question about each, or more than likely 2 from this whole set. Ripening. Just going to highlight all that. Just going to highlight all the ripening. Dilution, like this is good to know, but here, what I was talking about, alkaline pH. That's what I was trying to describe earlier. Get to know that in your book. Storage. Yeah, they're not going to talk too much about the storage of the coagulants. Like it's good to know. Flocculation. Boom, 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 boom. You will absolutely get asked about flocculation. Know about that. Acid addition. I like both of these because there's a lot of good information on both of those. process steps. And cutting, yeah. This is a big piece. Know all of this, like read all of this. This is all huge. Healing. I'm just going to highlight these things, but now we're getting to a point too where all of this will have at least one question. Cooking and stirring, for sure. All of that going down. Washing curds with water. That's going to be a huge thing. There's particular styles of cheese that do this, and it has an effect. So you will get asked, so continental styles, so Gouda, Havarti. So washing the curd, they're not going to ask so much about continental styles. And that's not the phrase they're going to go for, but what styles of cheese uses a washed curd? You need to know Gouda is number one, of course, but Havarti. Then you go into Monterey Jack, Colby. Generally, what you're looking for with those washing the curds is you're going to get what I refer to as a sweeter cheese, or a cheese that's void of a lot of acidity, basically. All right, draining, of course. A lot of information in this chapter. Oh boy, oh boy. Knitting, all of these things. This is just very important. Chapter. Cheddering, of course. You'll likely have 2 to 3 questions on that. Milling. I think you guys are getting the gist that this is just a very important chapter. Of course, know the hazards, and controls, the records, but a lot of this is going to be definition memorization for you, to be frank with you. So salting, know about salting, know what sodium chloride is. I mean, they've even highlighted it in bold for you in the book. It's a good indicator that you should know it, right? Unrefined, we're not going to hit all this up, but sea salt, iodine salt, coarse grain salt, know about that. Dry salt curing is more important. I would still know about those rest that I just touched. I'm just going to keep going. All the methods, these are all the methods of salting your cheese after making. So I definitely know each and every one of these. Moving through aging and ripening. I would hit like this 6.6. It's all of it pertains. And now, of course, get to know all of these bullet points. Chapter 5 and chapter 6 seems to be super duper important. A lot of information in these. Eye development. Absolutely, you're going to have questions about that. Aging on wooden boards. I don't know if any of you have been around long enough to, just a few years ago, there was a big stink about it. So, of course, our friends at ACS are going to want to focus on that, and you should have an understanding of aging on wood boards. Anticipate at least 2 questions about that. So read that entire part. Mites. No, I wouldn't say cute little cheese mites, but they can be so destructive. But we need to know about those as well. Source of mites, just keep it going down. So like, there's a lot of information about mites here. 1 to 2 questions more than likely will happen with mites. So read all of this, all of good important stuff, especially controlling. Mites don't like to be controlled, right? But you got to. Wrapping and rind development. Just, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just call all of that super important for you. Schmear ripened, know that that's a term, like that's a specific one. Gave it a green color, perfect. Brevibacterium linens. That's another one. You got to know what those are. And also, if it mentions a book in this packet, so like that means so American Farmstead Cheese, a complete guide to making and selling artisan cheese. Besides, like that is one thing on the reading list, something that hopefully you guys are reading through. But it's also important to know that that in and of itself could be a question. Who wrote American Farmstead Cheese? Know who Paul Kensett is. Know him. Highlight this little area here. But that also could be a question for you. He also wrote another book called Cultures in Cheese. I would remember that one as well. But continuing with rind development, undesirable flora, all of this is important. All of this, keep going. Bandaging. I distinctly remember 2 questions about bandaging on my test, so read through that. Cheese waxing. I would know paraffin. The term paraffin wax. You guys are going to do way better on the test than I did, but I remember a question about paraffin, knowing what it is and what cheeses we usually do with it. A lot of times I've seen that rubbed on, especially like if anybody's seen Marique Gouda, but that's what they rub around the Gouda at Marique. Kind of fun if you get a chance to do it. Vacuum packing, read about that. That's a good thing to know. And ash ripening. Definitely have a question about that. And finish reading through there. Okay, so we've gotten through the next course. What I'll do is I'll make sure it's probably going to be towards the end of this month, but I'll go ahead and send out an invite where we can finish reading through here. So those of you who are able to join us today or watching this video, again, best practice guide for cheesemakers. Read this entire booklet and then concentrate on what we've highlighted. But this is one of the major tools I studied, and you'll find a lot of information on the test is going to come out of here. So read the whole thing. Excellent. Are there any questions?
Yes, Nathan. It's
Yes.
Michelle from Schnucks.
Hey.
Why is the somatic cell count up to 1,500,000 for the goats?
Though that goes back just because they're different organisms, and each animal has different microorganisms that go on with them, and because the milk has different proteins and fats. So that's the best answer I can give you right now, but I'm going to make a note and see if I can't give you something more definitive, but that's just the way that is. And I think it has a lot to do with their environments, where cows are going to be laying down in wet beds or like going through marshes and literally drag their teats through more vegetation, and goats tend to live in kind of drier areas. So that's my take on that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anybody else? Well, perfect. Well, thank you all for taking your time. Like I said, you're going to get another invite. We'll go through here, but I'm going to say it one more time until I turn blue in the face. Read this packet, the entire thing. Again, reading this will help you pass the test. Awesome. Thank you all very much. Stay in touch, and we'll be talking to you in a couple of weeks.